Hello! This is a video on the stats for the critical mass build wizard in Diablo 3, and stats that I feel that you should be aiming for to get a nice fluid gameplay and be able to pretty much steamroll Inferno in P10. So let's have a look and see what we've got here. So the first thing is that if you've seen my previous video or already know how the critical mass build works for the wizard, you'll know that the critical hit chance is the most important stat for this build. And the reason obviously is that the critical mass skill means that for each critical hit they have a chance to reset your cooldowns by 1 second on all of your skills. Now the higher that your critical hit chance is, the more critical hits you'll be making and the faster that you'll reset all of your skills. So it just makes sense that this is obviously the most important stat. This is the reason that I take the Scoundrel with me as well. You'll notice that he has a skill here that gives you 3% more chance. There is another option, and that is to use the Enchantress rather than the Scoundrel. She, instead of giving you more crit chance, she will raise your attack speed, and if you're playing solo and the Enchantress means that she raises you above the next breakpoint, then it might well be worth using the Enchantress rather than the Scoundrel, but in most cases you probably want to use the Scoundrel instead. Okay, so you'll notice that mine is 57%. If I dismiss the Scoundrel, you'll see that my crit chance drops to 54, which is actually quite high. The stats that I'm discussing here are really the end game stats that you want to aim for. It can be quite difficult to get all of your stats to a quite nice level, and by difficult I mean it can be quite expensive in gold. So if you're lucky in finding a few legendaries that sell for quite a lot of gold, then you can pursue these kind of stats. But if not, it's obviously the stats that you want to be aiming for over time while you're upgrading your character. You can certainly build a wizard on a very small budget with the stats that you need. You just need to compromise in some of the other areas, and I'll go through that with you now. So your crit chance is obviously key. Try and get this to around about 44, 45 if not higher. If you can get it above 50, then that is absolutely fantastic. Just try and get it as high as you can. The second thing, the second stat that we want to focus on is our attacks per second. Now there's many breakpoints for all of the classes, and the most important ones for the wizard are 2.1. It's actually 2.0001 I believe, but the stats that I mention are like a point above, and that's simply because in game your stats are rounded up. So if you're aiming for a breakpoint and it shows it in your sheet, it might not actually be on that breakpoint. It could just be false information. So you want to make sure that you've got at least one above the breakpoint that you're aiming for to ensure that you bypass that breakpoint. So the first one is 2.1, which gives you 26 ticks per second. Now, 26 ticks per second are quite low, but it's still playable. The second one is 2.4, which gives you 30 ticks per second. The third one is 2.6, that gives you 33. The fourth one is 2.74. Now, this is the one I really feel you should be aiming for. It gives you much more fluid gameplay. It's really nice to play on that speed, and it's so fluid that once you get to that breakpoint, you'll never turn back. The 2.74 obviously gives you the 36 ticks per second. The next breakpoint above that, which is the one that I'm trying to achieve, obviously it's endgame for me, is to get the 3 breakpoint, because that will raise my ticks per second to 40. And if you can achieve that, that's absolutely amazing. It's just very difficult to get there while maintaining all of the other stats that you need. And especially for me, you can see that with my amulet here, I could squeeze a lot more damage out of another amulet. I actually crafted one that gives me another 14k DPS. The problem is that I rely on the life on hit on this amulet quite a lot, as well as the armor resistance. The average damage makes up for it a little bit, but yeah, my crit chance could be higher on here, and there's quite nice critical hit damage, but I could certainly squeeze more DPS out. It's not about getting the most DPS you can, it's about getting a well-rounded character that can, you know, be effective rather than cheat DPS. I mean, you can see here that my damage is 268,000. If there's a lot of guys, I could do exactly the same thing. You know, I could go and portal now to the Festering Woods, find a Frenzy Shrine, jump into a pack, set off Frost Nova, and get 15% bonus critical hit chance, and all of a sudden I've got 390k DPS. And then if I teleport quickly back to town and log out, that's what shows on my sheet. So if you're looking at wizards from their profiles, never ever rely on the damage that's shown there. It can be buffed by a monk or a witch doctor, as well as a frenzy shrine, and obviously the buffs as well. So yeah, a lot of the wizards that you look at generally have less DPS than what's shown on their profile. Okay, so now if you're on a budget and you want to build a wizard, or you've already got a wizard, and you don't necessarily have this attack speed and critical hit chance, I'd recommend that you can sacrifice some critical hit damage and damage overall. I mean, you might have trifecta gloves, you might not, but if there was one stat out of the trifecta that I would drop, it would be the critical hit damage. Purely because your attack speed and critical hit chance are absolutely key to your survivability, keeping things frozen, and your damage is certainly not the most important thing on your build. If you're also playing in a party rather than playing solo, if you're playing with a monk, you can get your DPS boosted 20%. If you're playing with a witch doctor, boosted even more. I mean, in a party, there's no reason why you can't double your DPS just by the buffs that are shared by the other party members. So try and achieve the 2.74 breakpoint. Try and get your critical hit chance as high as possible, and you can certainly skimp on your critical hit damage a little if it means that you're achieving these stats. Right, so let's move on to, that's offensive stats. There's one other thing I'd like to mention here, and that is that you need to have at least 19 or 20 arcane power on crit, or what's commonly called APOC. The critical hits regenerate your arcane power, and the more arcane power you're regenerating per critical hit, you're not going to run into problems where your skills just die. So you want to have at least 19 or 20 arcane power on crit. There are a lot of different wizard builds, and you'll notice that mine is the Mempo build, or you know, there's usually the Stormcrow build, or there's the Mempo build. Now, I won't discuss different builds in this video. I might make another one if anyone wants to hear about that, but with the Mempo build, you'll notice that my arcane power on crit is on my wand, and I've got 9 on here, and on my offhand, which gives me 10. I do have a lot of experience of playing with 16 arcane power on crit, and I can tell you now, the difference between 16 and 19 is absolutely amazing. I'll just show you how important I believe this is. This offhand here was the one that I replaced quite recently, just a couple of days ago, and you'll notice that it actually drops my damage by 680, but I spent all of my gold on this offhand. It cost me 900 million, and the only difference is it gives me 3 more arcane power on crit. But the difference in gameplay is night and day. It's so much more fluid. I can tackle 1 or 2 targets a lot better than I could before. There's no jerkiness, there's no running out of arcane power as much. It's just so much more fluid. So please keep in mind that you need to make sure you have 19 or 20 arcane power on crit. Okay. Right, so let's focus on our defensive stats. Now, you'll notice that my resistances here are really quite low. The 634, 668 and 690 is my highest. Most wizards will recommend that you have 800 all res. Now, I believe that this is a big common misconception, and the reason I believe that is because the most expensive items for a wizard on the auction house are ones that contain all res but maintain the damage. Now, I disagree. I don't believe that you need 800 all res, and I can steamroll MP10 and play perfectly fine without it. The reason for this is that there's so many different ways that you can build your wizard that I generally compensate for this with my life on hit, and this just makes so much of a difference that I would never build another wizard without having over 1,000 life on hit. Most wizards will recommend that you have around 700-800, and 700 is generally the number that's thrown around. This is not the number that I believe you need to be effective. I think you need 1,000 plus, and you can see here that I have 1,454. Now, I prefer life on hit rather than lifesteal. Obviously the other option is to, if you've got quite low life on hit, is to switch out storm armor, drop your DPS a bit, or teleport, which I would never do either because that's one of my key skills for my gameplay. But you could switch out one of these and put magic weapon, blood magic in there, which gives you lifesteal. I just don't feel lifesteal's as reliable as life on hit, and find life on hit far better. Okay, so yeah, my resistances are quite low. Now, what I'd done just before making this video was I made a short gameplay run video that takes me through Halls of Agony, level 3, I kill 5 or 6 elites, and then I kill the Butcher. And you might think I'm crazy if I told you that I could pretty effectively tank the fire from the Butcher, even if he enrages. But I've made a video to show you that that's the case. I don't have problem with poison, arcane, or desecration. I've got plenty of time to move out of the way. Teleport is the other option, and my life on hit regenerates my life so fast, combined with my attack speed and crit chance, that I just don't need 800 all resistance. The key is that your attack speed and crit chance, in combination with my life, you'll notice here that my life is only 43,000, and most other wizards again will generally recommend that you have 50,000 plus. I do perfectly fine with 43. The way I think about my life is that I only need my life to sustain an initial blow, and after I've taken that initial blow, because my crit chance is quite high, and my attack speed's quite high, and also my life on hit, my life regenerates so fast that it's regenerated before I take a second blow. So unless there's something that is going to do more than 43,000 damage to me in one hit, and I can't freeze it first, I don't believe that you need more than that. I do perfectly fine with the 43. Now, okay, so life per hit. We've discussed life, resistances. I think that's probably about it. Now, if you avoid, you'll notice here that my Lacunis don't have all resistance on them. If these Lacunis had all resistance on them, they'd be stupidly priced. They'd be 1.52 billion. Same with my Witching Hour. If this had all resistance on it, it would be absolutely crazy priced. The critical hit damage is a little bit low. You'll notice that I've compromised with the critical hit damage to get some armor, and obviously the 9 attack speed is certainly key. But by all means, there's certainly other options that are a lot cheaper to get a nice effective wizard that don't require you spending billions and billions and billions just because it has all res on it. Now, there are many ways, as I mentioned, to build a wizard. I don't really want to go through them all in this video. It'd probably end up being too long, but these are the key stats that I think you should focus on, and if you can, there are certainly options for achieving them that are far cheaper. You can get life on hit on your Unity, Zuni Pox, which is where I have mine, and my amulet, or you could go for a Stormcrow build where the Stormcrow will give you life on hit. The Unity will give you life on hit if you have one, and there are other options as well, like is getting some Blackthorn's pants in here, which is for a starting build, and if you don't want to spend too much gold, one of the first things I would put in here is a pair of Blackthorn's pants. They'll give you life on hit, they'll give you really high vitality, and a lot of life percentage as well. They're definitely one of the best, cheapest methods for raising some of these stats to where they should be. So I think that's about it. If you guys want to see a video about the different types of builds for a wizard, let me know, and I'll certainly make one. I'll post the gameplay video right after this one, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and I'll try to answer them as quickly as possible. Okay, I hope you found at least a little bit informative, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.